Hey guys, welcome to another Garage Guide. I just hit champion with a day and 15 hours left. That's a huge relief for me. And in this video, I am going to show you guys the deck that I used to get there. As you can see, I've made quite a lot of matches, and up to this point, I had quite a huge amount of win streaks. But I want to focus on three specific matches. That is the Ashura Senku Akuma, on Uroboros Wesker, and of course the final
Just
boss,
itching for a
Yawn
fight,
Li.
huh?
The first match is against an Ashura Senku player. The Ashura Senku deck usually uses flyers to take advantage of the invulnerability provided by Ashura Senku. Now, the opening hand for a Jill player should include direct damage, so I had the Hellbat and Trust Amid Suspicion in my opening hand, so I kept it. I used Mikhail first because I was worried of the Unworthy, but maybe this deck doesn't have it, so whatever. Now, I used Gendro to block the Morphmoth. They used Heartless Experiment, and I wanted to use Ammo to make sure that they trade. Now, this action phase would have ended sooner, but the enemy used Cruel Game on my Mikhail, and I had no way to stop that, so just accept it. Now, I'm waiting for this phase to end. I was hoping they would trade out, but the opponent used a Pyrobat to buff its stats. Now the Morphmont now has 5-6 and my attack is only 5 and something I can do. So I tried to use Trust Amid Suspicion to get its HP down, but unfortunately it just got negated. Okay, so that's a big problem for me. Alright, so my Gendrone got killed, the Pyrobat got its hit in, and my Genprey killed the Pyrobat. Now, the enemy used another Pyrobat, and that made the Morphmont a flying unit instead of a slow unit. I used the Hellbat to block, but they got in the Heartless Experiment. Luckily, that gave me enough MP to use Detonate on the Pyrobat, but the opponent used Psycho Power. Now that gives it another 2 HP, and that means it will survive the collision with my Pyrobat. So now it's a 9-1 flyer, and my opponent has enough AP to use the Ashura Senku. I tried to block with the Blizzard Wolfgang, but of course they used Ashura Senku to move to a different lane. But they're not done yet. They used the Starvation Impulse spell, but luckily for me, they haven't ascended yet, so it only gave them +1/+1, but it's still a huge problem, because it's now a 10-2. They use Murder Spikes on my Blizzard Wolfgang, which is lucky. That gives me a trauma, so I can delay the attack of Morphmoth. So I wait for the attack line to almost hit, then I use trauma, but they use Ketchawacha up top, so that's another problem for me to deal with. And they use Hatred Reborn, and that put the Pyrobat back on the board, so I now have 3 units to deal with. My only out is to use Fate Defying Ryu on the Morphmoth and hopefully get enough answers to deal with the other units on mid and top. So I used Fate Defying Ryu, and they used an action before the Paulunu hit. That gave me enough MP to use the Liberating Slash. And wow, that was really scary. Luckily, I drew into Claire. So my Fate Defying Ryu has 5 attack before it hits, so that takes care of Morphmoth. They used Ashura Senku on the Morphmoth. Luckily, it's still slow, and I wanted to use Claire on mid, but I was too slow. And luckily, I drew into another Claire, and Morphmoth was still slow. That gave me enough time to use Claire and get rid of Morphmoth. They used Morphmoth to block the Fate Defying Ryu, but of course the Hadouken from Fate Defying Ryu took care of it, and I won the match. That was really scary. The second match I want to show you guys is against an Uroboros Wesker deck. The key thing for Jill players against Uroboros Wesker is to get rid of Gormagala as soon as possible, because this will prevent the healing from Shagarumagala. Now I have a Barioth on hand, so I was thinking this is a good hand. I mean, I have 3 Explorers with the Bushin Ryu. So I put down the Blizzard Wolfgang first, because this will bait out a Fate of the Unworthy, and if it did, I get an explore right away. I was waiting for them to do something, and then they use the Devil Joe that chases its opponent. I wasn't really expecting this, so yeah, I used the Gendrome to block it to get its HP down to 3. Now the idea was to use Genpray to block it and kill it, but I brain farted and I used the turtle. So yeah, I lost my turtle without it doing anything, and I had a Genpray at bottom with 3 attacks. So yeah, that was bad of me. Now I used the Gendrome again to kill the Devil Joe, and I didn't want to block it because I wanted the Wesker player to do it themselves. So I used Trauma to reset its attack line. It is a slow unit, so that means it takes 20 seconds for the attack line to hit. So that's 20 seconds of me not having to worry about it. Now I have a chance to use Barioth, so I place it on top to block the zombie. Then I use Mikhail to trigger the halt. Lucky for me, it triggered halt on the middle unit, but this tyrant kills all units with 1 attack if it dies, so I had a choice. I can either use ammo, but I opted to use antibody on Mikhail to make sure that it survives killing the tyrant. Now up top, my Barioth is getting really low on HP, and I wanted it to kill Julie in 1 hit, so I used ammo on it. Now, looking back, this could have ended badly for me. They could have used murder spikes on it, but luckily they did not. So they used Voltron. So that's good for me. And Julie will die on the next hit. And I use Hellbat to block the slow tyrant at bottom. That gave me the barriers up top enough growth points. So now it's fully growth, and I had a detonate to kill the tyrant with. They used Selfish Predation on it, which is fine. I just wanted to remove it. But that also gave me a chance to use the Bushinryu. Now, they used Mad Massacre on the Slow Tyrant at mid, and I was contemplating using the Liberating Slash on it, but there's no way it would deal 5 damage up top, right? So I just let it go. So lucky for me, it did not. Now I can use the Antibody on the Barioth up top. They used Uroboros again, and this time they got back Devil Joe, and I had Claire on hand, but I was too distracted to use it, so I waited for another cycle of attack lines before using Claire. Then on mid, the Super Tyrant is bearing down on me. I could contemplating which unit to block it with, and I used Carlos to get another shield. Again, this Uroboros Wesker used the Uroboros skill, and this time it got the other Devil Joe. And on mid, they traded out, so that's good for me. And I still waited. My Barioth is still beating down on Wesker, and I used Nash to make the Devil Joe switch lanes. It's really funny. Again, there's no tactical advantage to it. I just wanted to do it. And I wanted to keep my Barioth alive, so I used Antibody on it. That killed the Slow Tyrant on 1 hit. And I wanted to make sure that my Nash survived, so I used Shield on it. But this gave the Wesker a chance to use Rebirth. Luckily, all of their big units have already been banished from the game, so all they got was a zombie. Now, this Super Tyrant would kill my Barioth, so I used Liberating Slash on it because I didn't want my Barioth to die, because that's my win condition. And healing it for 9, I placed ammo on Barioth to make sure that when on my next attack I negate all of the healing that I give to Wesker. But then they used predation on the zombie at the bottom, so that they now have 19 HP and a Gormagala on board. I was hoping that these two on the middle would trade out. My Barioth did 9 damage, and they had a desperate act. Lucky for me, they only had it at near the end of the match, because if they had this at the start, this would have been a way different game. Alright, so Shagaru Magala is now on the board. It healed Wesker for 6, but my Barioth up top is still uncontested. Middle killed the my Nash, and I immediately dropped Fatifying Ryu. It dealt 3 damage, and they used the yeah. Luckily, my unit on top killed the unit before it died. So yeah, there you go. That was that was quite a match.
Don't think I'll make this easy for you. You'll get no mercy
And now
from
the
me.
last match I want to show you guys is my class up match against a Yawn Li player. I have A1 5 stars, and this guy has 1674 points. That means this guy knows what he's doing, and I am scared. I want to win this match so badly so I can finally hit champ. Alright, now the thing against Yawn Li is that they always use batteries first, and I didn't want to play any unit because I want to be able to block their battery as soon as I can. Alright, so I'm waiting and waiting, and they use layer at bottom. I use Gendrome to block it at the bottom lane, and yeah, I have a chance to use Barioth. So I place it up top, and they use Chi to block to seal it immediately, which is kind of sad, but I don't know, it is what it is. Now at bottom they use Rainy Turtloid, and I use Hellbat to get a detonate. Now I could have blocked bottom lane with the Genpray, but I didn't want to because if I did, it would kill the Hellbat. I wanted the Hellbat to deal damage first. Alright, so it dealt damage. Now I blocked top lane with the Genpray because it already did damage, so at least I got some
All
value out of it.
preparations complete.
Now I noticed that the top lane has only 6 HP. I used Detonate. I was hoping that it wouldn't get shielded, and yeah, I got a hit in. So that was lucky. Now I have several choices here. I have 3 Explore, so I can block with Nash, but I let the cycle go in first
Still in it.
because I wasn't make sure. So now I block Nash to block that, and that killed the Turtloid at the bottom lane. Now they immediately used Witzel, an Ascended Witzel at bottom lane, so I use Antibody to make sure that my Nash survives at least the first hit, and I use Trauma to make sure that the shield stays on for longer. Now they have 2 batteries. You saw that they have 8 MP, I have 5 or 3, and they used Yawn on Witzel at bottom. Now I wanted to get rid of the Iris up top, so I placed the Nash, the second Nash, on the top lane. And the Witzel at the bottom lane still is halted, and they used Gold Orb on it, so nothing I can do, so okay. Now my Nash killed it, but of course it respawned, again still ascended, but luckily I still had my shield on. Now I used Mikhail on mid. Now this is the funny part. See, I used Antibody up top to make sure that my Nash survives, and at the bottom lane, Witzel hits first, lost its shield, and then my Nash comboed it for 8 damage, so my Nash survives and they lost their Witzel. And up top they used another Witzel, and my Nash again survives with 1 HP, so I have 2 4 1
All
Nashes.
preparations complete.
That's really funny. Alright, now they have the cat at mid, and I wanted Mikhail to trade with it, and they used Yawn, so yeah. And up top, I was thinking of using Magma Dragoon, and I was thinking about it,
Spirit burn.
but suddenly they used Felicia, and I was distracted, and then I mistimed my Dragoon, but it's fine. It still killed the Iris, which is fine. That was the goal anyway. But at mid, I used a Hellbat to block, and it died to Felicia, which is fine. That's okay. They used another Iris up top. I used Detonate to kill it, or to try and kill it anyway, but this time they had the shield to block. And that's okay. I can't do anything about that. I was thinking of using Antibody on Magma Dragoon, but suddenly they used Witzel up top, and again, nothing I can do about that. This time I used Hellbat to block,
Now we're talking.
and I used Antibody to make sure it survives,
I can't let it end here.
and Witzel hit, and then they used the seal. That was really lucky of me. Since they used seal late, that gave me the chance to use Detonate, and then they used Dream of Restoration, and before they sealed my Hellbat, I used Bushin Ryu to get another Detonate.
Still in it.
Alright, so we're 10 HP apart. Yawn Li has the advantage, and I am shaking. Right now, I'm thinking of placing Lucia on the board, but I don't have anything to trigger it off of, so I waited. I was waiting for them to play a unit. but they didn't play a unit.
I
Instead,
can't
they
lose this.
played Cycle, and usually when Yawn Li plays Cycle, that spells death for GL player, so I was even more scared. But luckily, that gave me my Barioth back. And I had a Detonate on hand and FT Ryu, so I had a fighting chance. Now they placed the cat up top, and I had 10 MP. I was waiting for them to do something before I placed anything else. Now they used Yawn on it, and that gave me the chance to use my Barioth and the turtle.
My spirit
They
burns.
used they transformed into Rainy Turtloid, and the turtle at the bottom dealt 3 additional damage. That
Now
meant
it's
that the turtleoid up
finished.
top only had
Give
4
up already.
HP. That gave me the chance to use Detonate on it,
Now you know what real tough looks
and they
like.
used Gold Orb. Luckily, I still had Detonate,
Give up
so
already.
I was able to kill that turtle, and it would have been a much different game if that turtle survived. So now I have a Flying Barioth on board, they have an Iris, and I have a turtle at bottom.
Now you
I
know what real
used
kung fu
the
looks like.
Wolfgang to level up the Barioth that fully
I'm
buffed
no
it,
tournament
and they
winner.
used
Just accept your
the
fate.
Beast Cannon on the Iris. I used Bushin Ryu on Wolfgang to get a trauma. Alright, now at this point, I was scared of Witzel. They used Yawn on Iris. I knew a Witzel was coming, so I timed and used Antibody on the last
No, I
second to
can't.
prevent a Witzel from dropping.
I can't let it end here.
Alright, the attack went through. No Witzel yet. My two other
My
units are
spirit
still
burns.
attacking, but bottom lane got sealed by Chi-Chi, and I was scared of a Witzel, and they used Call to Battle instead. I'm assuming, oh well, that's +8/+8. Call to Battle +8/+8.
Looks like my tactics are having
Now
its
at
magic
bottom, my
effect.
unit
Help me
is
out, Will.
dying, and I planned on using FT Ryu as soon as I can, and there you go. Wow, that was a
Nothing else.
scary
I hope
match,
you managed to find
and I
something.
am so relieved that I won that. And as promised, here is the deck list. As you can see, I also had the Seregios, but unfortunately in those 3 matches I didn't get a chance to show it. But this is the deck that I used, and this is the QR code for the deck. Hopefully you guys had learned something from this video, and hopefully you guys can see the value in using Barioth in your decks. And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!